Hello everyone, I'm Saket and this is the Design Podcast. First of all, I want to wish you a very happy, prosperous and a creative Diwali. It's been few months since we started this podcast and it's been a phenomenal journey. I never thought that we would be reaching 1,000 subscriber mark so soon. We have completed roughly 12 podcasts. I want to thank each and every one of you who have been supporting this channel consistently from the first episode, be it a viewer from the first episode or if you have started recently. You have been a huge part of this design podcast journey. I'm getting so many DMs on a regular basis where people are saying that this kind of content is making a difference in their lives. They're helping them as a designer. This is very assuring, this is very motivating. So thanks for doing that. Keep commenting, keep giving me feedbacks, and do subscribe if you haven't yet. Having said all that, today's guest is very special, and today's topic I think every one of us can relate to, because as a kid we have always wondered how these animation movies are made. What all goes into this? What is the process? How a designer ends up sketching so many characters? To answer all of that, we have a very special guest, Upamanyu Bhattacharya, best known for his movie Wade, which won several international awards. He has a studio in Kolkata named Ghost Animation Studio. He's working on a 90-minute long project, Heirloom. Upamanyu will be taking us through his design journey, how he ended up becoming an animator, what were the challenges. If you are an aspiring animation student, what you should be doing, what and all things you should be focusing on. He will be taking us through his journey for the movie, how he came up with this incredible concept of movie Wade and why he chose the plot Kolkata, and so many more things. Today, this is gonna be a value-filled podcast, so I recommend you to watch till the end. Let's start. Hello, Upmanyu. Welcome to the Design Podcast. Many of us know the kind of work you do through your Instagram, but for who don't, Upamanyu is an animation designer from NID, best known for his latest work, which is the movie called Wade, which won several prestigious awards like City of Annecy Award at Annecy International Film Festival. And you have your movie has a Wikipedia page. Your IMDb page says that you have also worked on movies like OK Kanmani and diet trying. So we're going to have a lot of topics to discuss. Okay, tell me something. You have achieved all of this at a very young age. Like, how old are you right now, if I may
I'm
ask?
28, but define young.
No,
Yeah.
no, no. Considering all of your achievements, 28 is like fairly young. So tell me something. How did all of this happen at such a early age?
I mean, one just graduates and you just keep moving from one thing to the next thing. So, like, I suppose
Wow.
it's actually the thing with animation is it's a very it's a high gestation period craft. In that
Okay.
sense, it's not something you can do a huge amount of in a short amount of time. But I guess if you do it right, like each project can have significant impact in terms of audience, in terms of
Were you always clear that animation is something which you wanted to pursue as a career?
I think so, yeah. From ever since like I figured out what a career is, and like when those abstract concepts they kind of make it down to us. Ever since that happened, I do think animation was it for me. And then because of multiple levels of exposure, I figured out what that actually looks like on a professional
Hmm.
basis. Like we actually had an animation workshop in Kolkata where they were trying to set up an animation institute
Oh, really?
where NID alum came and they were like, yeah, this is what storyboarding is. This is what all of that stuff is. And then you're like, okay, there are real human beings doing this for a living, and they
Wow.
studied somewhere, and then you process all of that information throughout your school years, where I don't really think you're doing much else with your head. And then on the other side of it, I think by class 10 or something, we'd had a proper conversation about it that NID exists. It's a good place to go. It has an animation department.
With your parents as well.
Exactly, yeah. And that we can try for that. And yeah, and then after
Wow.
that,
So before your 10th only, you were
yeah.
aware about animation design as a career option, and then also something like there is a college called as National Institute of Design, which
Yeah,
provides
but
this.
that's it. That's it. Like, there's
That's it.
nothing beyond that. Like, I didn't know anything about what life looks like on the other side of it,
Uh-huh.
where you could work, anything. All that figuring out was done while we were still in college. And I think that's the case for most of us who went
Right.
to NID. It's not like we go in with a huge amount of clarity as to what's on the other side. Uh,
Correct.
but we meet people along the way. Things happen. Uh, yeah, lots of things happen when in those 4 years. So I think that the clarity came from there. The intent was there beforehand. Like I was a PCMB kid, so I was just doing the P and the
PCMB
C
kid.
and the
Okay.
M and the B. That's all I was really doing. So didn't have art as a subject or any such stuff. But
Oh.
like I just guess you know. I used to make illustrated notes for like chemistry practicals and stuff and photocopy it and distribute it and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Like that was my that was my gig. So yeah.
Okay. So tell me something. When you entered NID, were there any pivotal moments which led the path you are on now?
Huh. I mean, I'll level with you. Like foundation was a little tough for me because I wasn't sure I was in the right place because it was, it is quite tough to be in a room full of 100 other people who are excellent.
Hmm.
Uh, and they'd had various degrees of training, they'd had various degrees of
Right.
artistic accomplishment already.
Hmm.
So especially in that environment, anyone can be like that's okay. Well, where do I stand in this situation?
Hmm.
But especially after moving to animation, like I think I really found my zone. And one really nice thing about NID animation at the time was they hosted this festival called Chitrakatha, which was really nice. It
Hmm.
was a very open, like the 2011 edition and the 2013 editions were really quite something in the sense that like it had a lot of attendance from all over the world. So we were being exposed to all sorts of animation professionals, and just this idea that they were coming and these were people who just did what we wanted to do full time. Like they were making short films full time, they were
Hmm.
making music videos full time,
Wow.
and they seemed cool. And like that was the first example that we had in front of us that okay, we could probably do that and become functioning adults as well. Like not like we could probably be like them in that sense
Hmm.
and do what they do for a living. And things seem fine with them. They seem happy, they seem content, they're being so
Hmm.
it's just nice to know that that can happen for you in a way. So I think that was quite cool. Like we were exposed to a lot of different kinds of films because again, a very very broad spectrum of animation exists out there,
Hmm.
and it's not something one curriculum can expose you to, which is why you need to expose yourself to like festivals for us would be the equivalent of conferences in
Hmm.
other fields where you see the best of what's happening currently,
Right.
and there's constantly innovation happening technique wise, storytelling wise. Definitely that was a really good experience.
Hmm. Actually, this reminds me that when I was speaking with Gaurang Nagre on the same,
Mhm,
like
mhm.
this design podcast,
Yeah,
so even he was saying that these kind of conversations which he had with industry people or
yeah,
someone who is doing the same thing for a living,
yeah,
not just for a hobby.
yeah,
So that kind of opens up your mind actually that okay, fine, this is something you can also do, and
yeah,
people
yeah.
seem to
It's very
be enjoying,
comforting. Yeah,
comforting. It's
yeah,
very, you see that happiness in their work.
yeah,
So
yeah.
all that gives you a kind of motivation to work hard and excel in whatever
Agreed.
you are
Yeah,
doing, right?
yeah,
So I keep on recommending all the students which I come across, possibly whatever you can, try to have those interactions with industry people, like people
yeah.
who are doing the same thing for you for their living. So वो उनको एक थोड़ा सा boost मिल जाएगा. There
And
will be a validation kind of a thing.
yeah, and this is where like I'd like to step in and compliment you because like when we were students, this wouldn't happen. Like we wouldn't just be able to sit on the internet and watch.
Correct.
Podcasts were not such a thing. Uh,
Right.
Instagram lives were not a thing, so you wouldn't get to see your favorite artist just like working, and then you couldn't get those slices of life. So that well, I mean you specifically, but the podcast scene in general, or this whole habit we have of now
Right.
having online access to the people we like I think that's really good, which is something we lack because that's why we had
Yes.
to wait for that festival to happen,
Yes.
to be like okay these people exist, like otherwise we
True.
wouldn't have known. So that's I think
True.
a decade down the line that's very different and very cool.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
Yeah, thanks for appreciate. Like, I wanna compliment to this entire design community. Honestly, when I started this podcast, or
Mhm.
the more I'm listening to people all around
Yeah,
me, who are doing this professionally, they are more than happy to do this, like contribute to the society, because we all, like, we joined the college at the same time. Like, I was in
Yeah.
PG and then you were
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
UG.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember, like, during that time, most of us who went into design, we had no access to such kind of knowledge. I didn't even know, like, a single automotive designer from India who is doing
Yeah.
this for a living.
Yeah.
Okay, I just
Yeah.
went in there. And now if I compare that thing with today's scene,
Yeah.
everybody knows everyone from the industry, at least through Instagram and LinkedIn. uh,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
they are they are getting access to their work
Yeah.
through Behance, like wonderful
Yeah.
platforms like Behance. And what else do you want? I think this entire thing which is happening, this drive to contribute to the society, to the
Yeah.
community especially.
Yeah.
So I am completely enjoying it. I think students should appreciate this fact, because it's very easy to just take it for granted. Okay, fine, this is everywhere. But I think if such
Yeah, but
kind of
definitely
things.
not a 2010s thing. This is definitely a 2020s thing. Yeah, good
Yeah.
time to be alive. Yeah,
Yeah, good time to be alive, right?
yeah.
Yeah. I remember during NIT, you had gone on exchange programs and all.
Right, right.
So, how was that helpful? Like, what was that experience like?
So going on exchange, I think it was like for me personally, like I feel like there's a lot of utopian thinking about education elsewhere. I think one of the main takeaways was, yeah, these guys have problems as well. So like I think it actually very directly influenced my decision not to study further abroad, like especially not to put more money into that
Wow.
situation and just be like, not. I'm not saying the exchange was bad. The exchange was a great experience. It was, there was a lot of very cool people we met. I went to like on a festival which was not Chitrakatha for the first time. Saw a lot of very cool work. Paris was an amazing city to be in. Uh, but like, how do I put this? They also don't have everything figured out, and it's best to go in with a focus. And if you know
Hmm.
exactly what you're doing with the education you're acquiring, I think that's a very good thing to do. Because going into the exchange, I knew there were a lot of things that we don't do uh, in the Indian curriculum, which I wanted to get some of, which is why it turned out to be a positive experience. But
Hmm.
it can also be like quite overwhelming, and it can be quite like I'm not sure what I'm doing here. And also, luckily, I was on scholarship at the time, so there was no financial stakes in the matter.
Hmm.
So
Nice.
like I could afford to be a little more, let's see how this goes about it. But I understand that it's a very expensive proposition for a lot of people,
Hmm.
uh, which is why like instead of seeing it as like a blind solution to all your problems, like it is healthy to be like, okay, I need certain things. There are certain things I want to top up skill wise, which I'm likely to get at that specific institution because of their department history, because of kind of work they've put out.
Hmm.
So like I just guess a little bit more critical thinking, because nowadays I feel like everyone just wants to go, whether it's during their program or whether it's immediately after their program. There's this whole sense of gotta get out as soon as possible. But like that's just something I would caution very politely against in that sense. So yeah.
Awesome. So I, to some extent, agree to what you're saying, because knowledge is the definition of knowledge. No,
Mhm.
it's quite different now,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
everything is available online, everything is available on social media. And if you are keen enough on learning things, different skills and stuff
Mhm.
like that, I think you will find your own way. And as you are saying, studying abroad is a very expensive, is an expensive proposition.
Massively, yeah,
Massively, right?
yeah.
I know a few colleges, like, I don't want to name them, but yeah, their fees are like more than a crore per year, right?
Yeah, like as in I understand that like it's good for employment, it's good for example, if you want to have that life elsewhere and you need this in order to obtain your first visa, and I get all of that. But like I'm also here to offer that counter argument that maybe some people need to stay back here, because otherwise
Yeah,
what happens here in
what
that
happens
sense.
here? Who will take
Yeah,
this field
so,
forward, right?
yeah, exactly. So like we can't all leave. So yeah.
Right, right, right. Awesome, man. So tell me something, Upamanyu, because animation design as a career, everybody knows from, the likes of Disney is doing or
Mhm.
Pixar is doing,
Mhm.
that
Yeah,
surface level understanding is there about
yeah,
animation design.
yeah.
But tell me something, like, how one can pursue this as a career, because I get a lot of DMs from
Mhm.
aspiring students, and they
Okay.
seem to be having no clue about how to pursue this as a full-time career. Like, what are the colleges? They know just NID, but more than NID, what can be done and things like that. So, can you throw some light on all of this?
It's a very broad question. So I'll
Yeah,
try to take it in sequence.
sure.
Obviously, a college is good to get that basic set of information about what the processes are on animation, around animation, uh, what. But the thing is, again, information-wise, like you just said earlier, there is this much information, and the rest that you build on top of that is practice-based, and it's
Hmm.
critique-based, and it's collaboration-based, and like all of those learnings that you get is almost entirely independent of that base of theory. And that base of theory, whether people call it the 12 principles or whether people say, okay, this is the pipeline that have Pele storyboard, then this, then that, that's easy to know. But the practice that you do on top of that is what really shapes your craft. And
Awesome.
more than anything, I think that's what colleges are very good for, to give you that community to practice within, because animation is a very community based thing. I don't think it's got so many processes associated with it that it's a little tricky to be hard at all, to be good at all of them. So it's always great to work with people who complement your skill set, and there are many different parts of the pipeline, like whether it's working with people who are good with sound, people who are good with art, with people who are good with motion, with people who are good with, so that it, like a good batch curation, I think sets you up with a good community to practice that with.
Wow.
So that's one of the best things about going to an animation school, I think, where you learn that. Obviously, after you leave college, like that's a very that's a whole other situation where, uh, like we'll I'm sure, like even with your question set, we'll get to the industry scene later. But there are a lot of roles you can fulfill, whether as an animator, as in someone who just does motion, versus
Hmm.
someone who does art, which can include a bunch of things. It can include character design, location design, color design. All of these things would come under art. So if that's your skill set, you can highly uh, take up roles accordingly. There are also post-based processes, like people who are good with compositing, people who are good with sound for animation.
Hmm.
There's also an increasing uh, demand for production management in animation, which is not something which we would do a lot of. But nowadays, especially, there's a studio situation in many cities which do animation as a service. So for them to manage all of their projects, to actually have someone good with project management for animation,
Hmm.
that's a new role that's emerging. So that's worth looking into as well. So those are the
Wow.
roles you can fulfill, and of course, there's many more. Like now, if I took it to 3D, if I took it to stop motion, there are lots of specializations that you can have, a lot of skills that you can call your own. But that's on the employment side of things, and obviously, like you can make a very easy jump to a lot of other fields like illustration, uh, and all of that, like even UI design, all of that. Like I know animation people who have made that jump as well, so it does
Hmm.
set you up with a lot of skill sets that you can use elsewhere as well. So I don't think employment is ever the issue. But for example, if you wanted to do your thing, and if you wanted to make films, and if that's your thing, it helps to first know that, again, this is something I mentioned during the whole festivals discussion, where animation as we know it is very narrow.
Correct.
But the broad definition of animation, where literally one image plus another image plus another image equals to motion,
Hmm.
is huge as a definition, in terms of people animate with all sorts of media using all sorts of storytelling styles, uh, narrative, non-narrative, experimental. So if you just take a look at any festival selection in a particular year, none of the films look alike. So everyone's
Hmm.
bringing their own flavor to it, their own point of view to it, their own cultural lens to it. So animation is a very welcoming field from that point of view. So if we restrict ourselves to, like, okay, if I want to make animation films, they have to look like this, they have to follow these processes. That's
Hmm.
fairly restrictive. But especially if you look just a little bit outwards, there's a very, very, very large and diverse uh, scene for animation, short filmmaking, and feature filmmaking, where it's very accommodating for a lot of different looks, a lot of different techniques, a lot of different concerns and themes. So once you take that time to figure out what it is that you are interested in, what it is that you find worth putting out there, and instead of you trying to bend over backwards to follow one kind of process,
Hmm.
uh, I think when it comes from that very personal space, a rooted space, a cultural space, then people tend to take notice.
You quite nicely articulated who should pursue animation design and what are the different fields they can choose as their niche for the
Yeah,
career path they
yeah.
want to take ahead. So thanks for doing that. Now, when I see your social media, I understand that you have been very vocal about, the salaries of animation designers in India.
Mhm.
So can you throw some light on that?
Yeah, I think like because what we do after we leave college and the kind of work that we can end up doing, it's kind of mysterious. Like I said earlier as well, like even we didn't know going into the program what it would
Hmm.
look like on the other side of it. And obviously, like besides an awareness of these roles and processes and the skill sets you need, you also need the confidence that I can make a living here, that I will be adequately uh, you know equipped to handle my life and pay rent and be in this field for long enough to do the kind of work that I want to do.
True.
And if an industry has negative work practices, like a lot of exploitative work, um, you know, those are things that discourage people from hanging out in the industry for too long.
True.
They may have a negative experience, a second negative experience, and then say, "I'm done." Like, so I'm
Hmm.
going to move to a more secure situation or
Right.
leave the country, and because there are better industry practices elsewhere. Obviously, like being in the freelance scene, like we have had a significant number of negative experiences ourselves, some of which were our fault, some of which were just a lack of preparedness. All of that is there. But just to be like, I think a very important step is just for people to have a number to what they can expect in a way, moving into the industry, and then they can decide, okay, is this number good enough, or is this? So we that's why we went and surveyed a lot of different animation
Wow.
professionals for what they make,
Hmm.
uh, not to not to say that like we didn't make any editorial on our part. Like it was just like it was a questionnaire which asked them for their existing rates, both as a salary and both as a project quote, like as a hypothetical project. Like if this is the brief, what would you quote?
Hmm.
uh, and we averaged out all of that information and also asked them that based on what they think the industry standard should be, like if they could quote specific numbers, like which may be different from what they currently have. And we
Hmm.
just put all that data together, and obviously there was a big disparity between what people want and what they're getting.
Hmm.
There was also a very very significant trend of unpaid internships and stuff like that, which means the baseline is always zero. So
Oh.
like, which is a very bad baseline to have. And then so that's just information we put out there, and I'm currently working on another set of data around the same. But it just helps to know these things. I think it also helps to know things like IP law, contract law, basic finances, especially if you are going to start off by yourself as well. So that's a lot of
Hmm.
information we had to acquire by messing up in many ways, which no longer needs to be the case. Like especially since we've had those experiences, now we can open source the solutions.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's the gist of it. Like it just I just think more salary awareness in any industry, like whether it's animation or whether it's any other industry, it just helps. I think, like especially to give fresh graduates an understanding of uh,
Yeah.
what they could do here.
That's quite commendable, whatever you have done. Now, you touched upon that you like all of this helps, even more when you are starting, like when you are running your own studio setup.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about ghost animation.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Before that, tell me something that
Mhm.
after graduating from NID,
Yeah.
many animation designers, they would have this, sort of a dream job, like
Hmm.
going to a studio like Disney or something like that,
Hmm.
but rather than doing that, you went completely independent and you
Hmm.
started your own studio in Kolkata.
Hmm.
So, why did you take that decision? What was your thought process?
Again, something I said during the exchange discussion. I think it becomes quite apparent after some time that unless you do things a certain way, you're going to have to invest a huge amount of money and time
Hmm. Right.
uh, to get to a position where I'll have to do my masters in the US. I'll have to work in that studio job for ages until I'm given any amount of decision making. So like it's just that much of a time and money investment to get me to that position,
Hmm.
uh, which I like, especially financially, I just simply wasn't able to do in that sense. So like to be in a position where I can, like obviously in programs around the world, you can do a graduation project uh, where they enable you to make a film and they give you resources. But again, you're kind of paying them to let you make a film, and I did know that I wanted to make a film, especially because I did not finish my NIT graduation project, so I just had this itch that no, I have to make something, otherwise, like, what kind of an animator am I? And
Wow.
so, like, immediately after leaving, like, me and a bunch of other friends who had also not finished their graduation projects, uh, we were like, how do we you know redeem ourselves in a way? So which is why after a few freelancers together, where we picked up enough confidence that we can complete projects, like we can see them through all the way till the end, we have a good grasp of the processes.
Okay.
Shortly after that, we decided to make a film first, not make a studio first. So we
Okay.
came together in order to make the film, and then the studio kind of congealed around it. So, yeah,
What was that first film which you worked upon?
that was as an original film or the freelancers.
Yeah, as in you said that to redeem yourself as
Yeah, that's
animation.
weird. That's weird. Exactly. So,
Oh, so you started Wade from that time, like
yeah, as an idea that, like, okay, let's go back to Kolkata. Let's, like, think of concepts. Let's,
wow.
like, find
This was
something to
which year?
say. This was so
20.
2014 December was graduation,
Wow.
and then no, no, no. But after that, 2015 was a very freelancey year, where we were
Okay.
just figuring out our foothold. 2016 we came back to Kolkata uh, to just again, like, take walks, see what the city is all
Hmm.
about. If we could find a story, and
Wow.
yeah, then to make that film, we found a space. We started paying rent, set up a bank, like all of that. Like, to pay people, we set up a bank account. That's how.
Hmm.
So, like, yeah.
We'll talk about Wade movie little more, but I wanna, comment on one fact that
Mhm.
what you mentioned about not choosing to go abroad for higher education and
Yeah,
not choosing to work for other studios,
yeah.
and then working on something of your own. I think
Mhm.
that kind of answers the question which I was asking you earlier, that it took you shorter time to reach to the level where a lot of professional designers would dream of doing, as in you became, like, you produced a movie fully independently which had your
Mhm.
name on it. Yeah. So, and that got appreciated in several film festivals, it won awards. But had you been in a different phase, that you are going for masters, you're working for different studios, spending, like, let's say 10, 15 years doing all that, and then coming back and then deciding, okay, now I want to make something of my own.
I mean, it's hard to say because, like, a lot of people's graduation projects in higher studies programs, they do well. But for me, it was just not an option in that sense.
Hmm.
Like, financially, it was just
Financially.
like there's no timeline where that happened for me. So, like, yeah. So
Okay.
it's hard to say. Like, it's not that people can't do that. Like, I don't want to make that blanket statement that, like, if
Right.
you
Yeah.
if you take that route, you're never going to have anything with your name on it. You can, and it's quite apparent in the fact that a lot of people's thesis projects in their higher education, it does well for them. It gets them opportunities,
Right.
gets them significant exposure. But it's a trend that I couldn't really get on. So, yeah, who's to say?
that's
Yeah,
that's a very personal choice of yours.
yeah,
So awesome. So now let's come back to the movie, Wade.
yeah.
Now tell me, like, that movie, it had, like, it's a very short film, so to say,
Hmm. Yeah.
but I remember seeing it, and I finished it once,
Hmm.
but then I was like, shit, there were so many things which were addressed in this movie.
Uh-huh.
Let me go back and watch it again, because
Okay. Yeah.
there was, like, and when I watched it again, no, I understood the depth of writing, and the kind of small small things which you were pointing out, like, you showcase this apocalyptic scenario where
Hmm.
global warming is at
Yeah. Yeah.
its worst situation, and then you also address through a tiger,
Hmm.
because Bengal tiger is quite iconic, and
Hmm.
you addressed through that tiger that how that survival can be, that fictional survival situation which seem to be very realistic, actually, if you think
Hmm.
about everything. So tell me something, that how did you come up with this, very exciting story? What was your
Hmm.
thought process? What
Hmm.
you and your colleagues, what did you do to
Hmm.
come to that final story?
Hmm. Right. Actually, like, this is something I'm going to tie back to that little tangent we had about mythology and stuff like that. It's just
Mm-hmm.
these stories, they come about not because we're looking for them in a way, but it's because these are things that we constantly grow up around,
Mm.
have heard many many times before. So they're just a part of us, like, whether we like it or not. So
Right.
with Kolkata, for example, we've had the information ever since we were kids that
Mm.
ये जो पूरा South Kolkata है, this used to be a jungle.
Hmm.
and शेर घूमते थे. Like that was the that was, we always knew that, and we were like, oh, this like, oh, there would have been a tiger over there.
Wow.
So that's
Right.
it's internal. It's not some like high
Hmm.
concept. Like we sat with a whiteboard and we were like, what if there were tigers in
Correct.
Kolkata? It's a given thing that this city is built on land which used to be tiger territory, in
Hmm.
that sense. So we know that, being from here, that's a part of me as is. So this was just about finding an outlet, and when you take all of those things and then you start thinking about, uh, like I said, we came back to the city deliberately, like almost as a story making exercise, and we were like, let's come back, let's put ourselves in that space, let's roam around, let's see what we can, what inspires us, and all of that.
Hmm.
And what was very apparent to us was that, like, obviously in Kolkata, there's a lot of storytelling which is nostalgic. There's a lot of storytelling which is like, hey, it used to be a great city, colonial times, and yellow
Hmm.
taxis and yellow lights, and that we have that category of storytelling, but we hardly have any futuristic storytelling around the city. So again,
Right.
just as we were roaming around, we were seeing locations from different movies, and we were like, "Yeah, that movie was shot here." But then, we were, hey, it's all nostalgic. All of that is nostalgic. So what's the opposite
Hmm.
side of things? And then when we were dealing with that, again, climate change is something that has concerned us for the longest time. But then we were like, futures for Kolkata doesn't look like the futures for those sci-fi movies that you see. It probably looks something like this because we're right there. Like Sundarbans is right there,
Correct.
the Bay of Bengal is right there, uh, and we were reading academic papers about the subject, about how the Sundarbans are steadily going underwater and how models predict Kolkata's submersion. Uh, you may disagree with the dates or whatever. Different papers say different things. Different models predict different outcomes, but it's going to get affected in some way. So,
Right.
which is why, as we were talking about that, clubbed together with this idea that Sundarbans has tigers, Kolkata used to be tiger territory, but then the tigers moved
Hmm.
back there, but then maybe they'll start moving back here, and that's it. That's how it happens. Like you just take a whole lot of information, it all marinates, and then something comes out on the other side. And then when you have enough information, when you have enough of a point of view where you're like, okay, but how do we survive this? Like, uh, will people adapt well, or will it be chaos? And then all of those questions as well. Once you have enough such points of view, then you're like, okay, I think I have a film here. uh,
Hmm.
because again, like I said earlier, a film is a huge time commitment, so you need to feel like I have enough to say here, in that sense. If I'm going to put this much time and effort into making it, like I'd better have enough to say. In a way. So
Wow.
yeah, that's how that came
Awesome, man.
about. So,
Awesome, man. As in, I recommend everyone to watch that movie. It's phenomenal. No wonder it's winning so many awards. And the kind of animation and the kind of apocalyptic scenario, as you mentioned, uh, it looks very different from whatever we see in sci-fi movies, right? And that's,
yeah.
I think, probably the most unique part of this film, that
Yeah, do you think so? Yeah.
yeah, so it showcased a very realistic future for a city like Kolkata. Uh, and Wow, as in I can't I keep on saying things about it, so I'm very happy that you made that film. Tell me something that
Yeah.
now everybody when they see when they see a movie like this,
hmm
they only would feel that stop motion photography which used to happen, that okay, a designer would be sketching hundreds of sketches, and
hmm
then there is like stop motion photography, like stop
Yeah.
motion
Yeah.
video of everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
But tell me, like, throw some light on other parts of a movie making, like
Okay.
what and all goes into it.
Well, I mean, that is a very large part of it, and that's what takes up
Yeah.
most of our time. And it's not like uh, we've had reactions where people are like, "Oh, you do every frame," and then we said, "Yeah, but digitally." Then they say, "Oh, digitally," but that's not a
Yeah.
shortcut in any way,
Correct.
in that sense. So that is a part of it, but a lot of, I think, a very under-celebrated part of filmmaking is the writing itself. So especially for later projects, which we'll come to, I'm sure. For like longer projects, more character driven projects, like writing, resolving a story,
Hmm.
uh, dialogue, even. Thankfully, Wade had none, but those are very large parts of it, in a way. And that's something I left out of the whole, roles you can fill. If any one of you listening is a good writer, that's highly
Hmm.
something you could do, because a screenwriter is a whole different mode of living, in a way. Like it's a whole different work process. It's a whole different thing. So that's a significant part of it. Art and art direction is a very significant part of it as well. Gathering enough references, deciding on your art style, doing enough look development. Like when we first released the trailer, the color palette was such that we were very unhappy with it. We didn't know. We knew it was off, but we didn't know why, because we didn't understand color enough. So we referred it to an illustrator called Sandhya. Then she did her pass on the color palettes, and she just very casually said that, if it's very hot, like if you point your camera at the sky will be white. Which was an interesting insight because, like, that's it's true. Like, if you have a very hot day and you point your camera at the sky, it's going to get overexposed and burnt out,
Right.
and it's going to be pure white. And that's when you get the sense that this is hot.
It's very hot.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, tiny little things like that, which other people contributed to the thing. Uh, like, so that's, art development, color design, all of those things is a other part of it. Another very significant part of the weight process specifically, I think, was sound, uh,
Mm-hmm.
where
Right.
where Troy Basanthi handled the sound, and like the film without sound and the film with sound is like two entirely different experiences, really. So like whether it was Foley generating those tiger sounds, we actually went to a riverside and recorded all the water sounds,
Mm.
including like
Wow.
so where a tiger hits the water, like that's one of us being thrown into the water and him standing, like Troy standing there with a microphone. So yeah,
Wow.
it's just I really think it takes a village, like lots and lots of different people contribute, and like with every contribution, it just becomes something more than it is. So yeah,
Wow. So, uh, give a fair, like a very rough number of how many people were involved in this movie.
quite a lot. Like I think over time, at least like 30-35 people worked on it,
Wow. Okay.
in different capacities, like small,
Understood.
big, but always like passes through so many different hands. So
Wow. Awesome. Because when you see a movie, you are not appreciative of the fact कि उसमें कितना effort जा रहा है.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
like all these, as in I have always wondered, Pixar makes all these short films, right?
Right, right,
Uh,
right.
and after the like movie will be for like 10 minutes,
Yeah,
but then उसके बाद में 1.5 minute just वो
credits. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
credits ही आते
yeah,
रहेगा.
yeah, yeah,
And I'm like कि कितने लोग मतलब
yeah. Really, like
वहां पे तो शायद वो लोग पता नहीं 200-300 लोगों का क्रू रहता है उनका
yeah, it's
लाइटिंग
huge.
के लिए इतने लोग इधर इतने लोग
Yeah.
awesome man so crazy so tell me something uh, what what is the like what are the projects you're working on if you are like okay in sharing
Currently,
that
yeah, 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 of course. Currently, the only thing I'm working on is a 90-minute long 2D animated film called Heirloom, and that's it.
okay
That's it. That's all I'm doing. That's all my time
awesome
goes behind that. So.
tell us more about this project because I know it also has like a lot of interesting insights what is this project about
It's a family story, and it's set in Ahmedabad in the 1960s. So
uh-huh
a bit of a homecoming project in that sense. Uh, so it's and the family, they have a textiles business, and
okay
the husband, uh, like he's inherited this textile business, but he wants to he's nostalgic about handlooms. He thinks like we're losing the beauty of handlooms and all of that stuff. So he's trying to put together a
hmm.
huge collection uh, to preserve handlooms and to make a museum of sorts out of handlooms. But his wife is like, the power looms are doing really well right now. We're not doing well financially, so why are we not pivoting our
Hmm.
business towards power looms, which would, like, it could change our lives in that sense. So why are you not letting that
Got it.
happen? So that's the conflict of it, and yeah,
Wow. Again, you are addressing something very culturally strong from Indian scenario. This time it's going to be
yeah.
Ahmedabad.
This time it's Ahmedabad. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome, man. I think I get a hint that what is your inclination and what is your taste as a
Yeah,
designer.
yeah.
That's awesome, man. Uh, let's come to the final part of this long podcast.
Yeah, sure.
Let's lighten up the conversation and let's talk about Mr. Upamanyu Bhattacharya. First of all, let me tell you that when
Yeah.
I first met you in NID, like
Uh-huh.
we joined together at the same year, I think 2011, if I'm not wrong, right? So,
I was in 2010, but yeah, like I was in animation in 2011. So like
okay.
yeah,
So when I met you in 2011 and I asked you your name and you
yeah,
said Upamanyu Bhattacharya and I'm like in my head, no,
yeah.
I'm like that's such a powerful name
It's a
because
long one. Yeah.
it's a long one, but for some reason, uh, it is very easy to remember.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, because I never
Yeah.
forget, like I never forgot your name, like complete name, because
Uh,
I also have a very long name. Like my like actual name is Saket Nampell, so it's a long name,
okay,
but
yeah,
it's very
yeah.
difficult to remember.
Uh-huh.
But whereas Upamanyu, for some reason, it has a very nice enunciation. I don't know.
Okay, okay,
So that is also there, and Bhattacharya is also, it has so much relation with Bengal and everything. It is
okay.
heard of. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very powerful name. You should be very proud of it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me, other than animation and everything, what are your hobbies other than this sketching? What do you
Uh,
do other than this?
yeah, I'm really trying to find something, honestly, at this point in my life. Like there are a lot of small things that I have. Like I took up clay modeling for a while, and then I took up wood carving for a while.
Wow.
Not good at either of them. I learned violin in school, and then I bought a violin a couple of years ago, saying like, okay, this violin is the solution to all my problems. It wasn't. Uh, so like I'm still struggling on that front. Like there's like I don't game very much, but there is a computer game I play called City Skylines.
Okay.
So like that's uh, like once in a while I'm like, okay, I shall spend my afternoon doing this. But like I'm still struggling. Like I mean, I enjoy uh, tending to my plants in this house. I enjoy cooking. Like all of those things
Wow.
are there, and obviously, like most people, I watch stuff. I'm currently watching Better Call Saul. Good show.
Ah,
So
yeah, good show,
yeah,
of course.
yeah,
Breaking Bad fans, no?
yeah.
Awesome, man. Any, because you said you are watching these things, any influential movie or project which you came across and then, it blew your mind and you're like, I want to do something like this.
Uh-huh. Well, I mean, it's too many to count, really. Like, even as students, we saw so many, like, every single project I think we were shown in class was that kind of, it was entirely new and it was entirely like, whoa, okay, this is also a way of making movies. And three very favorite short films which I saw. One was, so there's this animator called Don Hertzfeldt, and he works almost exclusively with stick figures. And
Okay.
again, tying back to my point earlier that animation can be so many things, and
Hmm.
I kid you not when I say that with stick figures he's made one of the most profound science fiction films I've ever seen with stick figures. So like
Wow.
that's really cool, and it's called World of Tomorrow. So that was a really beautiful experience. And even when we were students, his short film Rejected was quite, again, it was that turning point kind of thing for us where we were like, okay, this is a short film which is made entirely of stick figures. It was
Hmm.
nominated for an Oscar. So like, again, like, because animation doesn't have to be this one thing, it can also be stick figures, it can also
Correct.
be like so many other
Yeah.
things. So that was one film, World of Tomorrow, which I highly recommend. I think it's
I'll
on
put that
YouTube.
link in the
Yes,
description.
yes.
Yeah.
uh, then, while developing the feature film Heirloom, I had mentorship with the residency for a while, and my mentor was, he's based in France now, but he's from Iran, and his name's Reza.
Hmm.
And Reza's short film is not online yet, but it's called The Musician, and he studied Persian miniatures while he was a student in Iran, and now
Okay.
he's an animation filmmaker, art director, and he made Persian miniature cutout animation on paper and made this beautiful, beautiful short film, uh, set in Persia, uh, called The Musician. The music is beautiful, the art is beautiful, the story is beautiful.
Wow.
It was in the long
Exciting.
list for the Oscars as well. I will never stop hyping that movie. So that was another very beautiful one. And thirdly, there was a film called Genius Loci, which was actually nominated, I think, as well in 2021.
Hmm.
So that's by Adrian Measure, and his film is also, it's entirely made of watercolors, uh, very trippy, non-narrative almost, but like amazing imagery, absolutely fantastic. So like that's the thing. Like each of these three projects look nothing like each other. They don't use storytelling anything like each other. They
Hmm.
almost have nothing in common except for the basic definition of animation, which is image, image, image. So that's it. Like otherwise, they have very little by way of common DNA.
And I think while you were like explaining all these movies, you made a
Yeah.
couple of very strong points, like how being honest
Hmm.
is important when it comes to any kind of design.
Yeah.
Then also that nothing is like this, as you
Hmm.
are mentioning.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is also very important in today's time. I
Hmm.
think design is especially thinking out of the box. So if you
Yeah.
limit yourself in some kind of a box with some rules and all,
Yeah.
you're not doing justice to design, I think. So that's
Agreed. I
very
mean, just to take Reza's example a little further, like he is from Iran. Uh, he studied Persian miniatures, and now he made a film which literally only he could make, which is
Hmm.
far more exciting than like acquiring skills that make you like anybody else. In that
Correct.
sense, like there's no one else positioned to tell that story in that style except him, and he went ahead and did it, and that's very exciting.
Correct.
I think so. Like that's what excites me the most about the animation scene in India, because there are so many people from so many places learning animation. There
Hmm.
are so many like there's an animation project that's happening in NID right now where it's a graduation project, but it's a dialect of Assamese that is dying,
Right.
and
Okay.
that's the language of the film. So if you think about it, this is going to be the first time it's ever going to be in an animation film, this
Wow.
particular language. So this animation project will be the first so and so language animation film, which is very exciting. Like it's much more exciting
Yeah.
than uh, like making something that
Basically,
anyone anywhere could make. So
correct. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So basically, what you are saying is you need to be very like something you only you can make that is gonna get a lot of value, so to say. Like someone from that culture only will be able to combine that story, that culture
yeah,
with something
which
like
is
animation, which is like very
yeah,
specific
which is
knowledge.
not to say you can't look outwards and you can't
For
like I'm
sure.
not
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Ahmedabad, for example, but
Yes, yes.
if you travel somewhere you really believe in you fall in love with something, you acquire enough meaningful experiences, and you can make those your own, and then at a certain point
Mm,
you'll be able to call something your own even though it wasn't originally.
right. Yeah.
So that can perfectly, that happens with human beings all the time as well. So it's not like how like you are from Kolkata, from now on you'll only make Kolkata-based projects. That's not the
Yeah.
message either. But
Again, there is no
yeah,
strict rule as such.
exactly. Yeah. But
Awesome, man.
yeah,
So, tell me something like, what is
yeah.
your dream project? Like, you have something like, I want to make this sometime in future, something like
Well, I
that.
mean, I really would like to finish Heirloom. Like, it's still a dream project only because like we don't know like how long it will take and all of that stuff. But honestly, after that, I I'll be honest with you. I want to open a children's bookshop. That's what I want to
Wow.
do. That's the dream project. So like I think all of this kind of just
Wow.
enables that, uh, because yeah, where I can make children's books of my own and animate, not for a living any longer, uh, but just for fun. So like uh,
Wow.
that would be quite ideal, I think. So yeah, that's the dream,
Oh,
honestly.
that's a fantastic dream, actually, and thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
So, Upamanyu, we come to the final part of this podcast. I know that you are quite active in education scenario. Like
Mhm.
you go to colleges, interact with students, and meet them, teach them.
Mhm.
All that is happening. So, tell me something that if you wanna give any words of wisdom for aspiring students who are aspiring to be an animator or who are already in design college and
Mhm.
aspiring to become a successful animation designer,
Mhm.
what would be your advice to all of them?
That's it's tough to make it one thing, but if it had to be one thing, I think like a lot of the things we discussed over the course of this podcast, like you'll have noticed that very little of it was the software or the tools or that kind of stuff. Like I understand we have a lot of access to technology nowadays, and it can
Hmm.
get quite overwhelming as to okay, should I be learning so and so? Should I be learning so and so? Should I be really good at so and so
Hmm.
tool? And I think that takes up a lot of time as a student. Whereas, like
Right.
once we've acquired those skills, what are we doing with it? And
Hmm.
that's the kind of that's the engine that we really need to fuel. I feel, especially as students, like what am I all about? What kind of a person am I? Where do I come from? What are the
Hmm.
things that I can call my own? What's the story of my family? Where did we how did we get here? What are the things I love? What are the things I hate? So what is and that is what eventually through the filter of everything that you do in practice will be your voice. And that's something I
Wow.
really think needs work when you're still a student, because like it would be quite you know like having all the capabilities in the world but having nothing to say would be not such a great outcome, I think. Because like there are you just need to take one look at DeviantArt or ArtStation or anything, and you will see a lot of things that just look like you can look at
Yeah.
two of them side by side and be like, okay, the same person did this, but they did not. Like it was two
Hmm.
different people. But because again, it
Right.
doesn't come from like the skills are great, and there is a lot to be said about also acquiring the skills you need to tell the kind of stories you want.
Hmm.
Uh, but like that should probably come second in the process, according to me at least. So that's it. I know it's a contrarian viewpoint, and I know we're like there's a lot of encouragement out there to constantly be on top of the technology. There's nothing wrong with technology. It is a
Hmm.
very good tool when used to do what it is you want to do.
Correct.
So yeah, that's
Oh,
about it. Just I guess work on yourselves, or just figure out the kind of person you are, what you're all about, how you and your family got here. That's about it, and then you'll find something to say. I think
yeah. You'll
with
have
all the
your
skills that
own
you have,
voice, which
yeah,
comes from a personal space, which you
yeah,
kept on
I think
mentioning.
so. I think so. Yeah.
Wow.
So
Awesome, man. There couldn't have been a better way to finish this podcast. I really, as in, that was a quite powerful message, I would say.
you think so? Okay. Cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Glad to
As
know.
in, even for a moment, even I was, looking back at my life and he was like, yeah, even I should be doing this. Yeah, maybe this is going wrong. But yeah, it's very powerful. And as I said, there couldn't have been a better way to finish this podcast. Upamanyu, thank you so much for sharing your time, wisdom, experience, everything. And this is gonna be a value-filled podcast. So yeah, thanks for doing this with me.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for reaching out, and thanks for your patience organizing this as well. So yeah, very very glad to have been here, and I just hope it's helpful in some way. So